High-end master model, Genosaurer, Raven version. Hey, how's it going? Welcome to the channel. In today's video, we have the high-end master model, Genosaurer, Raven version from Kotobukiya. This iteration was released in August 2011. The original version was released in 2007, and this iteration is a color variant of that, with a few extras, and we'll be getting to that later on. I built this kit like 9 years ago, so I don't have the box art for it. But here's what it looks like. I believe this color variant is discontinued, so it's pretty rare, though you can still find the normal Genosaurer as a repackaged version. Since I have no box art to actually look at, let's take a look at the kit itself. But before I start the review, and in case you're wondering, this kit is not a hand grenade. Besides some small pieces falling off, it was very pleasant to work with. Though I do have to mention, I did glue these parts of the tail down because it makes it easier to transform its tail for the charged particle cannon pose. With that being said, let's focus on the kit. This kit is a complete out-of-the-box straight build, without any panel lining. It also came with these stickers, but man, it's been so long I have no idea where they are. Despite being an 11-year-old kit, and 15-year-old if you're comparing it to the original, it still holds up, appearance-wise and structurally. And though the overall build is not really that complex, I don't recommend this for beginners. It's much larger than a traditional Master Grade Gundam, and it has a lot more parts, so it could be overwhelming for beginners. But I digress. This kit is a high-end master model, so on the appearance, it has a lot of colored part separation, a lot of detail molded into it, and it looks absolutely awesome. And because this is a color variant, it looks very different from the original. Granted, this image of the repackaged version is painted, but yeah, the out-of-box version of the kit should be very similar. The Raven version consists of a really dark blue, in contrast to black on the remastered version. There are much more red accents, replacing the gray accents on the remastered, and the joint caps are different shades of gray. And those were the most noticeable change, so I would say a pretty drastic recolor. But what this kit does really well is it looks great in all the colors. Though for the Raven version, the color contrast is very sharp. The red is quite bright and vibrant, it goes very well with the dark blue, breaks up the color very well without making it look too busy. And you can already see the colored part separation, so I don't really need to show you any of that. But I do need to tell you, because the kit is dark blue, you actually can't see a lot of the details from far away. But by zooming in, you can see a lot of good surface level detail molded right into the plastic of the kit. I feel like I just gotta point this out because it's harder to see from far away. I absolutely love how Zoids are designed. Even the insides of the mouth are very well detailed, as is the underside. Typically, you don't see the underside of a kit that often. And by viewing it from underneath, there's still a lot of mechanical design elements implemented right underneath the kit. So as a straight build, this kit is absolutely gorgeous. Colors look great and go well together. There's a good amount of panel lining opportunities found throughout the kit. And as a guy who loves dinosaurs, this model kit looks like a complete badass. But is it a brick, a hand grenade, or can it actually move? Let's take a look. Okay, for articulation, beginning with the mouth, the lower jaw can open up and close this far. And in the mouth you can see the charged particle cannon, that also has a pretty good range of motion moving up and down. Head can tilt up and down this much. The head can't do a 360, but it's able to rotate this far. This piece over here can go up and down as well. The laser gun on top of the nose is able to move up and down, but if you move it too much, you might just take it off. Yeah, the connection isn't strong. The base of the neck allows the neck to move up and down this far, and unfortunately, there's only a minimal side-to-side movement. This is probably to protect the cables that connect from the head to the body. And these dorsal fins are able to flip up. That's probably not the name, but I'm just going to call it that because I have no idea what it is. And as we move on to the body, I just removed the arms and legs just so it's easier to see, but there's not much to see. Only the upper torso has any movement, and it's a small side-to-side bend. The rest of the body is just very stiff. There's no movement over here. Don't even try, you're going to break it. This is also probably to, save the cabling that runs right through the spine of the Zoid. For arm articulation, the shoulders are able to internally, externally rotate this far. Very good shoulder movement, and I'm happy to say that the shoulder joint is still very solid. Abduction, adduction is pretty good as well. We have a full 360 rotation without any issues. Arm could fully extend this far, and has a pretty good elbow bend. For the hand itself, I removed them to make it easier. The bottom claw is able to do a 180 rotation, and the upper claws function very similar. They are also hella pointy. And coming to the legs, similar to the shoulder joint, there's a very good external-internal hip rotation. This also carries on to the abduction and adduction of the leg, full 360 rotation of the leg. And if you're wondering, the joints are still very solid, no looseness or cracks, despite being built like 9 years ago. And while the leg is off, here's the leg fully extended, and knee bend, which isn't that much. This vent piece on top of the kneecap is able to move up and down, as can this large flap behind the leg. And when flipped all the way up, you can see these vents in the back, which are also able to move up and down. The foot has this much of a dorsiflexion, and this much of a full extension. Yeah, you can understand why the ankle has an issue supporting the whole weight of the kit. For the claws, they're all able to move up and down individually, though the center claw has a greater range of motion compared to the side claws. Behind the foot there are two stabilizers, which helps in balancing the Genosaurer, and they're able to rotate 360. This larger piece over here is called a footlock, and it also assists in balancing the Genosaurer. Oh, and if you flip the footlock up too quickly, the hydraulics might just come apart, but that's an easy fix. Done in a slow manner, you don't have this much of an issue. Now we take a look at the long-range pulsed laser rifles. They look pretty cool, but they are very simplistic in design. I'm just referring to the range of motion, which is just a 360, and they function individually. In addition, the mounting unit is also able to rotate 360, or I should say that it allows the whole weapon unit to rotate 360. Though I gotta say, the connection here to the body is actually very weak. And finally, we come to the tail. There's lots of moving parts here, such as these fins at the base of the tail that can open up, and the whole tail consists of 4 segments, with joints in between each tail, allowing the tail to bend up and down. Just be careful when you do this because the ratchet joint is quite tight. In contrast to that, the side-to-side movement of the tail does not have that much resistance, so it's pretty easy to move. Additionally, there are these flaps that sit on the top and bottom portions of each segment of the tail, and within those flaps there are these fins that could flip out. They're pretty easy to pull out, but just be careful, they are kind of small enough to actually lose one, which I did, so just be careful there. Each fin actually has a maximum range of motion, only allowing it to achieve a certain position. Don't try to force it anymore because it has a chance of breaking, they are very thin. However, after you pull this off, you have the iconic charged particle cannon pose. And boy does this look good, the model kit pulls off this pose very well. Only thing I might add is gluing the top portion of the tail definitely helps. So as a mechanical giant theropod dinosaur goes, the articulation is pretty freaking good. You're definitely able to pull off a pretty good amount of poses, granted if the ankles allow it, which is noticeably the weakest joint of this kit, though it's probably because the kit's actually too heavy for the joint itself. Alrighty, moving on to extras. First we got these extendable arm cable things. I'm not really sure what they are. And fun fact, these cables are actually exclusive to this version, the Psycho Genosaurer, and the Genobreaker. I don't believe the original and also the repackaged version has these. I could be wrong though, let me know. You are given 2, and they're also very easy to attach. You just gotta detach the hand, remove this little peg over here, and replace it with the long cable. And if you thought 1 was absurd, 2 looks absolutely ridiculous. And it's fan-freaking-tastic. Next up, we got a weapon option for the nose. A slightly different variant of the laser gun. It's quite detailed and could definitely use some panel lining, and it's nice how they have this as an option. However, this variant is completely solid and cannot move. But the weapons are very easily interchangeable, so that's pretty good. Lastly, for weapons, we have the long-range pulsed laser rifles. Though somewhat simple in design, the rifles look very good. There's a lot of panel lining that could be done, and the weapon silhouette has really good design elements molded into it. Also, it's pretty big and it complements the Genosaurer. Additionally, this version of the Genosaurer also has exclusive mini figures. We got a mini painted figure of Raven himself in a neutral pose. It looks pretty good despite, being tiny as hell, and it's painted really well. But wait, there's more! We also got a painted figure of Raven sitting down. And of course, this replaces the normal pilot figure that sits in the cockpit, positioned right in front of the Zoid core. Located on the chest, and like all Zoids, it's removable. All you gotta do is slide it out. This sitting figure is equally well painted and looks pretty good. Next up, we got the last exclusive figure, a fully painted miniature of Shadow. And like everything else on this kit, very detailed and it looks really good. Just ignore the dust buildup. And the painting's actually superb. They did well painting in between the lines. The eyes and claws look very good and I don't see any paint runoffs. Overall, these little minifigures actually look really good and they put a lot of time and effort into them. Sucks how they don't make these anymore, because they look really great next to the Genosaurer. Also, here it is for scale. Alrighty, let's move on to the shake test. I'm just gonna grab it here behind the tail. Pretty good. Gonna reposition my hand. I'm actually so surprised how well this is holding up. Gonna go a little crazy now. Considering only 2 large pieces fell off, this is actually pretty solid. We got the tail, which is pretty big, and the cannons, so actually not bad. We also have an additional small piece that fell off from the tail, but that's not a big problem. Luckily, everything that fell off is actually really easy to reattach. I actually had to shake it pretty hard just to get things to fall off. The end result is pretty good. I say it passed the shake test, and exceeded my expectations. This kit is completely solid. If you're wondering how big the high-end master model Genosaurer is, it's around 14.5 inches, or close to 37 centimeters. I know it doesn't look like it in this camera angle, but trust me it is. At least around there. And as it stands neutral right now in this leg orientation, it's around 7 inches high, or close to 18 centimeters. But fully erect, it'll stand around 9.5 inches, or a little bit over 24 centimeters. Pretty big boy. And for some scaling, here is next to the entry grade Arc 72, master grade Arc 72, figurized standard amplified War Greymon, a fellow Zoids in the high-end master model Shadow Fox, Doraemon, DK, Haro, and a classic of mountains and seas, the Pale Dragon. It's big, but not bigger than the dragon. However, still big enough to take up quite a bit of shelf space. But it looks so good next to the Psycho Genosaurer and the other fellow Zoids. Definitely has some shelf presence to it. And now we reach the end of the video. What are my final thoughts on this kit? The high-end master model Genosaurer is fantastic. Now, appearance-wise, it looks ferocious, it looks badass, and it's wicked cool. Articulation's pretty decent, and the main thing is it doesn't suffer from the issues from previous Zoids where they explode. So handling this kit for the whole review was simply a joy. Seeing as how I built this like 9 years ago and how well it's held up, I'm inclined to believe the new repackaged version should be as solid. However, just like everything in life, nothing's perfect. The Genosaurer does have relatively weak ankles. They are by no means loose, however, the Genosaurer as a kit is actually quite heavy, so having it stand is kind of like a balancing act. It's not difficult, but if it leans too far forward, it's gonna start kissing the ground. Next up, we have these pieces on the tail. I highly recommend gluing these down, or else they'll be falling out a lot, especially when you try to pull out the flaps. This will help considering there's a lot of these pieces. This kit does have some negatives, though not that many thankfully. But if you're considering getting this kit, I highly recommend it. Unless you're a beginner, then I recommend, high grade Gunpla or smaller Zoids. But that's just my own opinion. Thanks for watching. I hope you like it. I enjoy making it. Let me know what you think. If you like Zoids content, check out my channel, and also more to come in the future. Thanks again for watching. Take care. Bye.